welcome. You're watching the India Development Debate. I'm Tamanna Inamdar. Right after Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman decided to cut taxes for corporates down to an effective 25% and as low as 17% for new enterprises, the clamour began. Why should individual taxpayers and salaried employees pay much more than companies who generate large revenues? And now some reports are suggesting the Finance Minister could give the aadmi a massive pre-Diwali gift by paring income tax slabs. The demand comes even as the government is sitting on the direct tax code report that most believe also recommends a cut in income tax slabs. The general belief is this will lead to an improvement in consumption, which is a big part of the current slowdown that we are seeing. But the question is, can we afford it? We're having this conversation on a day that GST collections have dropped in September to their lowest in the last 19 months. It's clearly a tough call to make. Should we bet on a tax cut boosting demand immediately or play it safe, considering we've just decided to let go of 1.45 lakh crore rupees because of the corporate tax cuts? To speak more on this, I'm joined today by Ketan Dalal, Managing Partner at Catalyst Advisors LLP, Dr. Radhika Pandey, Consultant at NIPFP, Mohan Guruswamy, Visiting Professor at Administrative Staff College of India, and TP Oswal, Managing Partner at TP Oswal and Associates. Welcome to all of you and thank you for speaking with us today. Ms. Pandey, I'm sure you've seen all the euphoria since this morning, thinking that a tax cut is just round the corner. Let's begin by talking about how reasonable and practical this is, and is it truly desirable at this point when we're in the middle of a process of trying to reverse an economic slowdown?
So I think there is a definite case for direct tax cut. As it is, there is a risk of fiscal deficit being breached because of low consumption demand. Tax revenues have been falling, especially the direct tax and GST collections have been falling. So I think economy needs a booster dose in the form of steep cuts in direct taxation. Also, as a pillar of sound macroeconomic policy in the midst of an economic slowdown, I think there is a case for counter-cyclical fiscal policy in the form of lower tax cuts and higher productive spending.
Mr. Oswal, do you think this is the right time and about time for an income tax cut?
Well, when the government want to increase the taxes, they don't wait for anything, they just increase the tax. But therefore, if the reduction is due, they should immediately do it, they should not wait for it. In my opinion, there is a full justification. I agree with the previous speaker that there is a full justification for reduction in the rate of tax, because this is the need of hour. Look at today's GST collections have gone down. That shows the economies are going slow and slow and slow. Industries are not producing, laborers are not employed, and there is an unemployment created. Consumption has gone down. How do you increase the consumption? By allowing some payment in the hands of the taxpayers, so that they save something and pay the instead of paying tax, they spend the money, and the festival seasons are on, and therefore there must be some reduction immediately. And this is what I believe is also recommendation maybe from Direct Tax Committee and the neighboring countries. If you look at the neighboring countries' rates of taxes and our rate of tax, we are far in excess than other countries.
The question is, can we do it right now? I mean, this whole push has come before Diwali. There is no real reason to believe that, okay, there is a festival, but there's no real reason to believe that, the Finance Minister turns into Santa Claus because Diwali and, festive season is coming. But Mr. Dalal, do you think there is a case right now? Because like Mr. Oswal mentioned very correctly, GST revenues are down. That brings the question, how will we afford it? Should we wait and watch and see if consumption revives by itself because of the measures announced, or give it that accelerator push right now?
So Tamanna, let's just step back and look at the bigger picture. You already had a 1,45,000 crore giveaway, and I think that was very much required. I'm not an economist, and therefore I'm not in a position to say how they're going to meet the fiscal deficit. But I think the government is walking a very tight rope on this. On the one hand, you have the fiscal deficit. On the other hand, you have the situation of disinvestment also being a question mark because the stock market is extremely volatile and is very difficult to plan. On the other hand, as TP Oswal just mentioned, there is a case for a tax cut, partly because other countries have got that, and partly because there is a need for a customer boost, because more money have to be put in the pockets of consumers. You see in auto figures, etc. The issue is whether they can do it, whether they can do a stimulus for a year or two. But remember that they increased the tax rate to 42% of income over 5 crores and 39% for income between 2 to 5 crores just 20 days before announcing the tax cuts for the corporate. So I don't know how they can do it, but I think there is a case, although I am not sure how the fiscal maths will work out really. But I think there is a clear case because we know that the state of the economy is what it is.
No, so the fiscal math right now is like really we don't know. It seems like we're sort of hoping for a miracle, and I'll come back to Radhika Pandey on that because we've not increased our deficit target. We've kept it at 3%. The half-year borrowing program has also stayed the same. So nothing has seemed to change. We seem to be betting on divestment. So we don't really know. We know as much as you do, Mr. Dalal. The question is about the optics, and let's come to that very important point. TP Oswal, you wanted to come in. Effectively, at the highest bracket with cess and superage tax and everything all inclusive, it's 42.74%. Even at an income of 5 crore rupees, the fact is a multi-crore rupee turnover company will pay about 25%. But the government can't seem like it's rolling back its superage tax. Between everything, it hasn't touched it.
You see, a person whose income is above 5 crore, he pays tax at 42.7%, 75% from any income above 10 lakhs of rupees. How justification, what is the rationale? Why should a person earn that much and pay the tax? The issue is the slabs have skewed totally. The total progressive rate of taxes have failed in our country. That shows it is very clearly, and therefore rationalization is required. Thinking must be properly done, and progressive. We had one point of time in 70s 97.75% income tax and 5% wealth tax. People were selling their shares to pay the wealth tax. So this is not the situation you should land up. Increase or decrease in rate of tax gives the effect at least 1 year later, and therefore you will have to wait and have some patience. What happens in our case, the government does not wait for a single year and all of a sudden they say we must increase the tax. That is not the way. First, rationalize the rate of tax. There is no difference because we are straightway, after 5 lakhs of rupees income, our slab goes to 20% up to 10 lakhs of rupees income, from 5 to 10, and beyond 10 it is 30%.
Yeah.
So what is genuinely, we have only 2 slabs, 20 and 30, and now this third slab is 42%, which is very high. So therefore rationalization, the slab, if you ask me a very honest question, you have to have a slab up to 10 lakhs or 5 lakhs of rupees exempted income, but everybody is supposed to file the return. Beyond 5 lakhs of rupees up to 25 lakhs of rupees, the rate of tax should be 10%. Beyond 25 lakhs to up to 50 lakhs, 20%. And beyond 50 lakhs, make it 30%. And so, please note, you must create an atmosphere of taxing agricultural income.
Okay.
We have no tax on agricultural income. At least bring in the concept of people having a land beyond 15 acre land.
But Mr.
They should be paying agricultural income
Mr. Oswal,
tax.
we know that is never ever going to happen. We know that's never ever going to happen. So let's stay in the realm of what's possible.
Abolition of Article 370. Sorry. Abolition of Article 370 was never ever going to happen, was the situation.
Okay.
This government made it.
Okay.
And this government, if determines, can do everything.
Okay, but they also want to come back to power, so that works into the calculation. Anyway, Mr. Guruswamy, your opening comments. Everyone's very euphoric and excited in advance about a belief that an income tax cut has to come. I mean, the fact that this government has cut corporate tax rates down, it's not like they're waiting for any budget. You now have major announcements at any given time. So there is a sense of expectation. Do you think it's out of bounds? Expectations are set too high?
Well, I don't know. I can't comment on expectations. People always like to pay less taxes and lower taxes. Why not lower GSTs? Why taxation at all? But how is the government going to run? The savings rate in this country has been down from 38% in 2010 to less than 30% in 2018. And if this savings rate keeps dropping like this, and if household savings keep dropping, and if government savings keep dropping, expenditures keep dropping, this economy will not grow. So government has a task of finding money to stimulate growth and for capital expenditure. If we have to be a $5 trillion economy, we've got to invest almost $1 trillion in infrastructure and manufacturing in the next few years. Where is that money going to come from? That's about, we're talking about 180 to 160 lakh crores. That's the kind of money you need. Now, where is that money going to come from? So unless you tax people, unless you tax corporations, so I don't agree with this thing of giving tax cuts to the corporations. Already our tax rates are quite low, are quite competitive with the best in the world. But if you say that income tax slabs should be 10%, 20% maximum, that kind of thing is absurd. And why should people pay taxes? People pay the taxes because the society, the state gives you a right to earn money. And you earn money, so you pay your dues to the state. It's simple, the concept of giving back to the state what the state allows you to do. So it's a contract, it's a social contract between the people and the state. So why you pay taxes is because you've got to maintain a government. And a government is empowered with the task of generating growth to increase prosperity.
Okay.
If you don't understand the cycles of economy and keep saying that, I also wish lower taxes. I pay tax today at 35%, 40% slab, 35%. I would like to pay less taxes.
Yeah.
But it's an obligation.
It's an obligation.
The state maintains
So what about
state maintains.
Interesting contrarian view. Interesting contrarian view. I'm going to open up the debate to responses. If someone wants to come in, please indicate and I will come to you. It's an obligation to pay taxes because the government allows you to earn your living and you need to give back, and so a government runs. So it's absurd, says Professor Guruswamy. Who wants to go first? Radhika Pandey, you want to respond to that? Do you think it's absurd? And an important point he brings in is the drop in household savings.
Can I respond, Tamanna?
Yes. Since I've gone to Radhika first, let her finish and then I'll come to you. Yes, Radhika Pandey.
Okay. See, one has to think of this in terms of the state of the economy. When the economy is on a downward trend, then one has to lower the tax to stimulate demand. Because as it is, when the economy is going down, your tax collections are lower. So one has to give a boost in terms of lower taxation. And if we look at the corporate tax rate, though we are saying that there is there's going to be a whole of 1.45 lakh crore, but if we look at the tax revenue foregone initially, when these companies were claiming exemptions, government was already losing 1.08 lakh crore. So the net loss to the exchequer is only to the extent of the difference between 1.45 and 1.08 lakh crore. So I think government has done a very smart move of reducing corporate tax rates, but at the same time, the companies that are going to seek corporate tax, reduced rates, they have to do away with the exemptions and the tax incentives. So I think the fiscal implications are not going to be that grave. The state of the economy does demand a reduction in taxation, and one has to give a serious thought to the recommendations of the direct tax code, which has proposed a complete rationalization of the direct tax slabs.
I don't know exactly what the committee has proposed though. Since August 19, the report is with the government, but most reports say it does. The question though is that will all these corporates actually move to the new system, considering a lot of them now are paying less than 25% anyway with their incentives. Mr. Dalal, as you come in to respond to what Mr. Guruswamy has put, I want to add another angle. What if individual taxpayers are given the same options as corporates? That let go of, all your options of tax exemptions and then play a lower standard rate. Would that at least give us the same choice?
So there are 2-3 parts to your question. Yeah, so I think, Tamanna, there are 2-3 parts to your question. So let me first deal with the corporate tax part. So you mentioned that many companies are paying lower than 25%. That is true. But it is not as if, a very large proportion is paying less than 25%. And remember that many companies may be paying, say, 24 or 24.5, for example. And the exemptions really are to some extent additional depreciation and SEZ exemption. There are not too many exemptions for corporate. So I suspect that many will move, and I'm talking from some experience of the last couple of weeks, most will move to the 25% rate in my view. So that is one part. The second part, what Mr. Guruswamy said, yes, that is true that the government needs money, but as Radhika Pandey also said, today the economy needs a stimulus, and we are faced in a situation where I don't think we have the luxury of time. We are faced with the tyranny of the here and the now. We have 6 months left for the end of the fiscal year, and I think in the next 1.5-2 years, the economy, if it doesn't go up, we will have a significant problem of joblessness. You are seeing the situation on the ground for infra, for real estate, for NBFCs, etc. So I think variety of things need to be done, but I think this cut may be necessary, given especially that anyway it's high. There's just one last point I want to make, and that is the point on cash flow. Remember that these cuts, even for corporates, have come in September, when 2 installments were paid.
Yeah.
So if your profit was 100 and you were to pay 35 as tax, in the first 2 installments you paid 17 already. In the next 2 installments you were supposed to pay 18, because roughly it's 45 and 55 in the 4 installments, first 2 and last 2.
Yeah.
Now with 25 you're supposed to pay only 8 in a situation where the profit is declining. So my sense is, unfortunately, usually the tax is back ended. Here it will be front loaded, and there could be a significant cash flow mismatch. So that's the negative part, because if you give to individuals, that will add to the negative complication, negative trend of cash flow. So I think there is a need, but I think the government is walking a very, very tight rope on this. From
absolutely. Because if it was that easy, maybe it's a decision that would have already been made. Everyone knows this is a consumption problem. Okay, I'm going to allow Mr. Guruswamy to respond, because we've had 2 rebuts to his idea. What about the idea of timing, Professor Guruswamy? The fact that we need to do something now.
I think this perverse logic saying that tax collections are down, so you reduce the rates of taxes. It's absurd. There is a case for increasing tax rates when collections are low. Okay, the business of government is to collect taxes, so that money can be invested in people, and they can better their lives, have improved prosperity, and so that the government can collect more taxes again. So it's a cycle. It's called a virtuous cycle. It just keeps going on and on. Which is why, in the old days, they used to invest in agriculture, not because they liked farmers, but because land was the biggest source of revenue. So the higher the yield of farmers, the more taxes the government collected. Which is why the British built these networks of canals. So, you got to invest on the ground so that we can reap better harvests. And this is why, governments have to judiciously pay taxes. If you become very high, then people don't pay, the compliance becomes a problem. If it's very low, then your revenues are down and you can't spend on people. So you've got to find a balance. I think we've found a good balance. We had savings rates of about 37-38%, even when taxation rates were the same as now. And why is the rate dropping? That's a question you have to answer. You can't look at this from an accountant's point of view. You've got to look at it from an economics point of view.
Okay.
How are you going to get money to invest in the state, in infrastructure, in manufacturing?
Okay, let me get TP Oswal to respond. He wanted to come in.
You can have a greedy wish list,
Yeah, no, I don't know if it's as simple as a greedy wish list, because look at the kind of people I've got on this panel together. Like I said in the beginning, does anyone want to pay more taxes instead of less?
No,
no.
You might have anybody.
Okay, one minute. Let me get DP Oswal. Let's listen to everyone. Let's listen to everyone, Professor Guruswamy. That's the fun of a debate. Let's listen to everyone. Yes, DP Oswal. Yes.
What is Mr. Professor is trying to give you an idealistic society's solution. The today's situation is alarming. It is not an idealistic society, it is not a normal society where the markets are falling, where consumptions are going down, companies are not reporting properly, unemployment is increasing. And in such a situation, if you do not come out with a solution, you will be living in the world where you will not be able to run the economy. And you are going to create more economical problems.
Solution is
and
reduce
therefore
taxes.
It is my opinion that this solution is not going to work. Second thing, hold on, I did not interfere when you are speaking. Second thing, the latest report on the black money, this demonetization which has come in. After demonetization, the agricultural income reported by the farmers has gone down. It means the people were converting their black money into the white by showing this as an agricultural income, and therefore it is necessary to think about this sector which has gone scot-free. I am saying that up to 50 lakhs of rupees agricultural income you exempt, no vote bank will be impacted, because the marginal farmers will not be liable to tax. Only rich farmers will be taxed, and accordingly you will collect the tax. You are not giving such solution. You are saying that we have a problem, so you increase the tax. That is not a solution. Reduction in the tax is the correct way.
By that logic, then,
at least within a year,
why did we drop corporate tax rates in the middle of this economic slowdown? By the logic of what Professor Guruswamy is saying, why did we drop corporate tax rates?
Correct.
In the hope that they will invest that money, which will lead to a more virtuous cycle. Professor Guruswamy, you want to come in? Yes.
Precisely, I asked this question then on your sister channels. Why is corporate taxes coming down when you need more money? The logic misses me completely. And this is the kind of, then why have taxes at all? Why not reduce GST? Why not, have, one slab of 5% or 3% of GST? Everybody will be happy. After all, there are expectations from the state.
All the rationalization cannot take place overnight.
One by one, gentlemen. One by one. Yeah.
Money has to come. You have to create jobs for them. Okay. Where is money going to come from?
Okay. What about divestment?
I don't think any of
what about reducing taxes, increasing the tax base? These are arguments we've heard over time. What about, when you reduce taxes, you increase the tax base, more people actually come and pay taxes, they don't evade, and thereby, in terms of volumes, you get higher tax incomes?
You're going to have a minimum tax rate. You're going to have a minimum tax slab. You're going to have a minimum tax slab. The problem is that, the income inequality is so high that the tax base is always going to be small.
Okay.
That's your problem.
That's a valid point.
Because you haven't invested on the ground, you have dropped investment, your tax collection is not going up, the base is not going up.
Okay, that's a valid point.
There are a number of tax returns filed. That doesn't mean tax base is going up.
Let me come to Ketan Dalal on that point. How many people will actually start spending more? Now, all of this from an economic perspective, not from the we want less taxes perspective, but from what it does for the economy perspective. All of this works basically for largely the 10 to 20 lakh bracket. If you give them more money, spending power in their hand, one assumes that's the class of people which will go and, buy more consumer products and etc. and, churn this wheel around. How much of income tax do they actually account for? Now, we know the percentage of income tax to total direct tax revenue is 43%, and income tax to total tax revenue is only 22.5%. In that, you super slice one bracket. So, how much of a difference will it make is the question. And there, I want to dovetail that into the income inequality point that Professor Guruswamy was making. Yes, Mr. Dalal.
Yeah, so I think, Tamanna, let's just step back. I think with digitization, with GST, with technology, the number of people who are able to avoid tax and evade tax has reduced to my mind substantially. You know, the point is we cannot just look at the number of people who are trying to avoid. We have to look at their contribution in terms of value, because there is so much of a trail that it is difficult. I'm not saying people are not doing it, but very less. How will, for example, most salaried people do it? There's a TDS at source. So I don't know what we are talking about there. Coming to your other point regarding the, you know, the ability to spend or the incentivization to spend, I'm not an economist and it's very difficult for me to answer that question, but common sense tells me that relatively smaller purchases, you know, we are not talking of going and buying an expensive car, but relatively smaller purchases, like day-to-day items, like even say television sets, for example. I think there has been a substantial holding back. A, because there is less money in the pocket. B, there is an uncertainty about the future.
Yeah.
There is a fear and people are holding back. Some kind of stimulus in the context of what we are can possibly help. That's all I would like to say.
Okay. Since you're outnumbered 3:1, Professor Guruswamy, I'm coming to you more often. And then I want to come to you with a simple question. If you think that dropping tax rates is not the
I'm
answer.
outnumbered because that's the kind of panel you've chosen.
Well, you have an unpopular
Doesn't
view,
diminish from
but
what I'm saying.
you're getting a fair chance to defend yourself. Anyway, important question.
I've answered everything.
Important question. Let me ask the question. If you say that reducing tax rates is not the solution right now, how then do you spur consumption? And I'm sure you will agree that a drop in consumption, a drop in demand is a big part of the problem that we're seeing right now. So if you don't reduce tax rates and put more money in the hands of consumers, then what's the alternate solution in your view?
The issue in front of the country today is how to get biscuit consumption up, not the sale of cars. If people have stopped consuming biscuits, the laborers have stopped eating biscuits with their tea, it's a lower income consumption, then the things are really bad. So how do you get them to work? How do you get jobs for them? That is the issue. And for that, you need capital expenditures. Expenditure in this country is led by the state. You need more and more money of that kind. And then you will get your other consumptions. As long as savings rates were high, growth was high. Now, the reason why was the savings rate started dropping and the growth started dropping. You can see it runs parallel with each other. So I think you've got to get the cycle of investment back. China has a savings rate of close to 50%, which is why it's growing at this rate. And look at its GDP. It's 5 times ours now.
Okay.
And we started off in 1976. China had a lower per capita income than India. And it's gone past us and is now today celebrated its 70th anniversary. And look at the kind of celebrations they had. Look at the kind of display they had. And where are we?
Okay.
Because this endless debate. People don't want to pay their dues. People want benefits for themselves. You know, always complaining that, you know, that the poor are getting too much.
No, I don't know if anyone's complaining about the poor getting too much, but
you need to have more money.
Let me bring to, you know, the notice of this panel one thing that I often hear when I'm speaking to people and those who are in higher tax brackets. They often say that we pay some of the highest income taxes.
More free.
But what do we get in return?
Subsidized milk, subsidized transport,
what do we get in
subsidized
return?
Electricity.
Professor Guruswamy, I'm on your side. I'm listening. I'm on everyone's side. I'm listening to what everyone's saying. Let me just finish my point. A lot of people complain that when we pay 30% plus taxes, what do we get? We have poor infrastructure, bad roads.
You need better infrastructure.
What about all of that? What are, you know, salary taxpayers, income taxpayers really getting as a deal? And what are we paying high taxes for? What do we get for it? What benefits are we getting from the government?
You see, it is said that people buy civilization by paying taxes. But where is the civilization here? You have day-to-day murders, rapes, everything is going on. Where is the policing? Nothing. And therefore, why should a person pay proper tax also? That is a questionable issue by itself. Second thing we are talking about is the capital expenditure, and what the Radhika said is absolutely correct, that your expenditure, curtail expenditure, unnecessary expenditure. Our 83% of the total government expenditure goes on payment of salaries and interest. Salaries and interest and petroleums. So therefore, if that is your way of spending the money, why do you want to increase such a fat bureaucracy in the country, reduce, trim it down and control it through the digital economy. Digital modes you connect and automatically reduce your the size of the bureaucracy and reduce your debts. Your debts also seems to be very high, and therefore the capital expenditure, when you are talking about for the purpose of growth, look at the expenditure which you are incurring. You don't have surplus left with you to spend the money, and you are talking about capital expenditure now.
Okay, Professor Guruswamy, just that last point, at some point, taxpayers are going to ask, what are we paying for?
How do I respond to a guy who says there's no civilization in this country, there are murders and mayhems all over the place? Is there any justification for this kind of talk? Are there murders on the streets every day, which he sees?
Every day you see rape.
Breakdown in law and order. We are paying taxes because society has to be maintained. It's your duty to pay taxes.
Okay.
You're not doing a state a favor by paying some taxes. The state is doing you a favor by allowing you this opportunity.
The opportunity to pay taxes. Okay.
And don't say there's no civilization.
It's an interesting way.
There's old civilization. We're doing
such bad roads.
Thank you very much.
It's an interesting way of looking at it, but I don't know if many people look at it that way. But anyway, we can hope maybe
that's
for a
because
reduction.
of breakdown in government, not because of taxation.
Okay, we can hope for a reduction in taxes. We hope it happens, and that there is a rationale behind it. Putting more money in the hands of people to spend never seems like a bad idea. I want to thank all of you for joining us on the debate this evening. Who knew a debate about income tax could get so heated and feisty? Well, expect another very interesting debate right after this break. We're talking about September sales numbers of auto companies. They're bad year on year. There's a small improvement month on month. So is the glass half full or half empty? What's the true picture of auto numbers? Are we beginning to see the first signs of a recovery? We're coming back with that debate after the break. Don't go away.